Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Johnny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast. It's Black Friday, it's 5pm, so I hope you've got a stout in your hand and some bargains in a basket. Bradley, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate, not too bad. No Black Friday purchases for me.
As yet?
As yet, no.
We'll see. I've been eyeing up a coffee machine, but everyone's seen my kitchen now because of the home brewing exploits, and I don't really know where that coffee machine would go. So I think that might not be purchased. Should we dive straight into the video? Because it's a fun one this week.
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty. So yeah, this week was another solo effort from me when I went up to the apple harvest up in Herefordshire. So you may have noticed in the first video that we did last week where I was following Little Pomona around and Tom Oliver around during the cider harvest, we didn't actually drink a drop of cider in a whole 20-minute video. Drank quite a lot of juice and ate a lot of apples, but I didn't actually drink any cider. So this week we did a video where I sat down with James and Susanna, the founders of Little Pomona, and tried 3 amazing ciders from the local region. So one from Ross-on-Wye, one from Tom Oliver, which was technically a perry, and then their cider, which was actually made with a dessert apple. So sweeter, less acidity, less tannins generally in a dessert apple, which is like, dessert apples what you might find in a supermarket. But you can use any apple to make cider. So we tasted through a load of those. I felt kind of rude, but my favourite was the Tom Oliver Perry. I thought it was absolutely incredible, and you can kind of see my eyes light up in the video. It was a beautifully kind of honeyed floral pear juice that just had a lovely soft tannin at the finish that really made it really, really drinkable. And I immediately bought a bottle straight after we finished filming because I loved it that much. Have you ever had much perry, Brad?
Yeah, I used to like a perry as a younger man. I certainly drank a lot of bad cider in my youth.
What was your bad cider of choice?
Definitely Strongbow, White Lightning, all those sort of barely ciders. And then I'd say when I was about 17, 18, and I used to go to my local pubs, I'd drink a Guinness, or I'd drink some sort of proper West Country cider. And I just hung out in old man pubs in my early 20s and, well, late teens, early 20s. I mean, I can remember going to the pub at the end of the road where my school was, and I was a sixth former. So I think I was probably technically underage to be drinking, but that didn't bother me. I had a great face of hair.
Clearly it didn't bother them either.
No, I mean, it was, I'd just be wearing a suit. We didn't have to wear like a school uniform or anything in sixth form, so, I could have just been an estate agent or something, I suppose.
Yeah, I can't imagine you even looking like an estate agent in a suit, Brad.
I had a pretty good beard. I had a wicked beard at 17, so I used to just be able to drink whatever I wanted.
There you go.
Makes me think of that episode of The In-Betweeners where they go in and they order. They want to get pints at the bar, and the only way they can do it is by ordering perry. If they sit down and have a roast dinner as well, so they all sit down in the food area and have a pint of perry, and eat a roast.
Which isn't unlike the situation we're in at this point, where you have to have a bloody meal for it to be COVID safe in a pub.
Exactly. It's either what's the thing? It's either I'll have a pint, or I'll have a pint and some chips, or no pints. That's the kind of the 3-tier structure right now in the UK. So
there you go, succinctly surmised. I like it.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I've got to say on that. So I will be going out and ordering a pint and some chips, or maybe a pint of substantial meal, or whatever that beer was that I saw.
Yeah, I've already seen quite a few of those.
Yeah,
a lot of brewers brewing beers called substantial meal.
Pretty lols that. So I appreciate that humour. You got to laugh, right?
Yeah,
otherwise you'd cry.
Humor. Exactly that. Yeah, so I mean, I never really liked cider at all, but I went to university in Exeter, down in Devon, and you had to drink cider down there sometimes. Like, you go to like beer festivals and stuff and be like, most of this is cider. So I drank a lot of probably not particularly good scrumpy cider, as they call it down there, that, had Brett character and was pretty dry. Drank a lot of that down in Devon, but nothing of the quality that I was drinking from Tom and from Albert at Ross on Wye and Susanna and James. Like, their stuff is just absolutely magic. And these videos haven't been hugely viewed, but it's something we wanted to do, I think, because we want to start getting into cider and start bringing that to the channel, and that means we have to persuade you guys. And it's been great to see in the comments that lots of people have been persuaded. So we've had lots of people saying, I never even considered trying this. We got a comment from Jay Neal who said, I've barely drunk any ciders, but I've loved saisons and some wild fermentation barrel-aged beers. Recently from London Beer Factory, which I need to look up because I've never loved their beers, but I've never had a wild fermented one. And they've been dry and cidery on the palate. Am I making a false connection that I might enjoy little Pomona stuff equally as delicious? Yes, that is exactly the connection we were hoping to make. So these really dry, fruity ciders, particularly ones with more pronounced Brett character, are a lot like Gers. We talked about this in our Discord forum, which you can join if you join our Patreon, about how there is these natural ciders seem to ferment a little bit cleaner. Something about that fermentation, either it's more gentle or it's more easy on the yeast, or because it happens for a long time, not huge amounts of phenols and esters are produced, but you end up with a very clean but still, quite Bretty. I guess the Brett kicks off, but like the pedio and the lacto doesn't. So you get really smooth, really easy drinking kind of Gers-like ciders. And I suggest anybody that loves the wild barrel-aged side of brewing has a go at some proper natural or fine ciders, they like to call it, because the flavours are very, very similar. Did you find a comment, Brad, that you enjoyed?
Yes, I've got one from Tom Wilderspin, which is a great name. I've just finished watching a series on Amazon Prime called Louder Milk, which is all about an ex-drug addict who has become a drugs counsellor, addiction counsellor, and it's awesome. So anyway, Tom Wilderspin / Wilder Milk, he said, I used to think cider was reserved for polyamorous druid types from the West Country, but these ciders look amazing. Definitely going to try a few ciders and perries next month. So anyway, as far as I know, all druids are polyamorous. That's certainly my experience.
What do you mean your experience? You've been amorous with some druids?
No, I don't think so. I've been to Glastonbury quite a lot.
Never managed to tie one down though.
No, I remember being very messed up at Glastonbury one year and throwing one of those candles that are I think they're called lawn candles, aren't they? They're like, you stick them in a lawn and they're like a sort of tiki bar thing.
Right, yeah.
It's about 4 foot high. I remember being quite off my tits and picking one of those up I guess maybe like a sort of druid kind of styly, maybe dancing around with it for a little bit. And then I launched it at my friend Andy. He was wearing a Nike metallic silver shell suit jacket.
God, the keep away from fire ones.
Well, it set him on fire, and so he was pretty pissed at me.
God. I think we shouldn't blame you. We should blame the druid vibes of Glastonbury.
No, it was all the bongo drums, mate. They sent me into a sort of primal state, and I got very caveman, and where it's sort of, I guess, images of cave paintings and men with, stick men with spears throwing at herds of wildebeest. It just sets something off.
Beer
for
in
me.
one hand, candle in the other.
That's
I
it.
think I've seen that on a cave
It's
wall somewhere.
probably
Definitely.
a K cider in one hand and and a lawn candle in the other. But yeah, fun times.
There we go. See, you need to be replying to these comments on YouTube. All I said was, that's very much what I thought until a few years ago too.
There you go.
Whereas you go into some glorious revelry.
That's why they've got to come and listen to this. That's where you get the exclusive Brad chat, the nonsense, unfiltered.
That's true. I should convert on the video about the strongest beer in the world. All my replies are just, please read the pin post as people go, this isn't the strongest beer in the world. On this video, I should just start replying, listen to the podcast.
Exactly.
Because I can't compete. I can't compete.
Hey, it's not a competition, man. We're all just trying to make the best of it. And alcohol's a funny thing, especially if you're mixing. I mean, I used to like mixing cider with beer as well, which is another thing. And I don't know whether that's. I mean, I wouldn't do it these days, but I used to love a snakebite and black. In my goth stage, when I used to hang out and was known as the Camden Vampire by a lot of my friends, I used to love a snakebite and black. It's great.
Why the Camden Vampire?
Because I used to hang out in Camden a lot, and I guess I looked a bit vampiric because I had kind of Robert Smith / Russell Brand tussles of hair and very skinny jeans and winkle pickers and.
You've been the happiest vampire that ever existed.
Yeah.
Right, so you might be glad to hear that, we're moving away from cider for the next couple of videos. We are starting our Christmas content as of next week, which I was going to say might mean less weirdness from Brad, but actually Christmas is when your most famous weirdness comes out.
Exactly.
Sort of the Pete Bog mummy moments that we've had in the past. So next week we are homebrewing a Christmas beer. I won't spoil it any more than I already have, other than say that it's a big old Belgian beer. So that starts, it's a 2-part series, starts next week. And we've got some bonus uploads coming for you during December as well. And of course, our classic Christmas beer video, because it's not Christmas until Johnny and Brad have waffled on at you for half an hour about beers that are incredibly strong. Incidentally, I'm also brewing my family Christmas beer tomorrow. Again, it's a New England Pale Ale, as festive as, I don't know, as festive as Easter. But yeah, that's what they always demand. So we've got ourselves a tasty pale based on our New England IPA recipe.
Nice.
So I'll save you a bottle, Brad.
Thanks, man. It was pretty festive when we were out in New England. Just being, I just remember being on the side of a motorway, wearing a cowboy hat and sort of jumping in about 3 foot of snow. And walking around.
It's really deep snow, isn't it?
Amazing.
Although every now and then you tried to dump into it and it was frozen solid, so you really hurt your knees.
Ouchie. It was a bit ouchy.
Yeah. Right, should we take a question from a listener? We've got a little back catalogue of them now. So this is a comment from Sean Brewer. He's asking about special beer moments. So take it away, Sean.
Hi, Johnny and Brad. It's Sean Brewer here, one of your patrons. I have a question for the Craft Beer Channel's podcast. One of my favourite all-time beer moments was after a long walk up the Old Man of Coniston in the Lake District, stopping off at the Black Bull Inn and having a barley wine in a pint glass from the Coniston Brewing Company. And that got me thinking, what are your favourite all-time beer moments? For me, that one was made so perfect because it's a day with my family, and after a hard walk, we could relax in a lovely warm environment. And it's the little things in life that we have to look forward to in these current times. So I was wondering if you could share yours with the podcast too. Thanks, keep up the good work, guys. Loving the beer. Thanks, bye now.
There we go, thank you, Sean. Firstly, can I say that your beer moment, Sean, is amazing.
Yeah.
That pub, the Black Boar up in the Lake District, is absolutely incredible, and Coniston Brewery make amazing traditional British ales. Their barley wines, their darker stuff, and in particular Coniston Bluebird, their bitter, are some of my favourite British beers.
Yeah, man.
So strong choice.
Very emotive. I enjoyed that. From the Brewer Man.
from the Brewerman.
Great stuff.
So go on then, Brad. You go first. Can you think of an ultimate beer moment?
I mean, there have been so many over the years, but I guess sort of looking back on it, a particularly great trip was, I think it was our first trip to Czech Republic. We were out there with. Were we out there with some other beer geeks?
Yeah, we were out there with Mark Dredge, Michael Kaiser, Jeff Allworth, Chris Hall, all the leading lights of 2015?
Something like that. It was a fair while back. And we went to this amazing brewery, which we've talked about at length before, which I think is sadly no more. But it was Kaltsamave, which is out in the middle of this sort of bohemian forest. It's a fucking semi-blown up building, which is decrepit from sort of World War II.
It was an old brewery that got sort of stripped, I think, and was battled over as well.
It was super mad. We walked around it with the owner, who was kind of this incredible dude who wore a wife beater shirt and looked, like a sort of Eastern European strongman leader, and he just showed us around this sort of really kind of hovelly looking, frankly dirty kind of brewery, with all kinds of funky shit up the walls, and almost slimy kind of stuff around. I seem to remember, and open fermenters that were just bubbling wild sort of witches' cauldrons, and just crazy stuff that I hadn't really seen at that point. Because in my head I was like, this is not very clean for a brewery. It's kind of crazy. We got to the end, and he brought the bit after I think we'd already eaten a bit of sausage at this point. Maybe sat in front of a portrait of him wearing the wife beater while he was talking to us in the wife beater. But by the time we got outside and we were handed these giant flagons, stoneware, amazing, probably 2 litre flagons of beer, fresh, tapped out straight from the brewery. And my God, it was the best beer I think I've ever had in my life. It was just so crisp and fresh, and just I don't know, it just tasted like wonderful nectar.
Yeah, I remember that. It smelled I'd never smelt a beer aroma like it, because it had kind of a brioche note from being like a brioche and caramel note from being a decocted lager, but also the expression of the Saaz hop was strawberries and fresh grass, and just the hop oils, you almost couldn't see straight. There was so many hop oils sort of coming off of this beer. It was the most incredible sensory experience I think I've ever had, and coming out the stoneware, and after that tour through that bizarre beaten old brewery that they were trying to breathe new life into, it was just unlike anything we've ever seen.
It was mental. And then later on I remember we got incredibly drunk. I think they gave us big 2 litre
plastic bottles of it.
Bottles you drink, Coca-Cola style plastic bottles, which make Coke taste terrible. So you can imagine what they do to an amazing Pilsner. It didn't travel well. And I think I didn't drink mine. But I remember I drank mine. Yeah, a lot of people drank them. But that was a wild trip, man. That was probably my best beer memory.
Yeah, I mean that probably would be my best beer memory. But drinking Pliny the Elder in the brew pub with a pepperoni pizza was pretty special.
That was great. Watching that guy build the towers out of the cards, sitting next to us as well.
Somebody wrote an article about him. I think he'd been drinking there almost since the start of Russian River, 1997.
Yeah. He's just trying to finish that tower.
He's never got to the top because some tourist has bumped into him.
He can't leave. He's just there trying to build it, and it keeps getting knocked down. Poor bastard.
Yeah, but the best beer I've ever had, or the best beer experience I've ever had, was actually it's with a Kronenberg Red, which is obviously not particularly good beer, but I'm a very keen cyclist, and back in my younger days, I used to go on tours with my friends, and we'd set ourselves challenges. So we were cycling from the north coast of France to the south coast of France, which is about 1,000 miles. And there was one day where it was a long day. We had to do about 150 miles that day with all our stuff on the back. And we got to the campsite that we'd we were intending to stay at, and it had closed down.
God.
Like we had not done our research, and it was just an overgrown field with a tap in the middle. And so we'd been cycling by this point for about 9 hours in 30-degree heat. And we had this decision to make, like whether we cycled another, it was about 20 kilometers, so about 15 miles, or whether we just sort of camped wild for the night. And we were all like, no, we need a beer after today. So we cycled for another hour to another, the closest campsite. And we got there, and the bar was about to close, but we all bought 2 pints, and then we just sat in the pool. They had a pool at this campsite. It was a fancy one. And we just got in the pool and just drank our pints to cool down. And it was the best flavoured beer I've had since, well, it would have been probably the year before we went to Kout. And just that Kronenberg was just nectar.
Wow.
Neither pint lasted more than about 3 or 4 minutes.
Nice. Well, I mean,
that
sounds awesome and well deserved after that trip. I do quite like. I guess like a swimming pool beer is a bit like a shower beer, so it's probably very satisfying.
The luxury.
Yeah, the luxury, exactly. Of after all that expenditure and effort, the reward must have been amazing. But I'm sort of thinking back to some kind of Floridian pool beers that we shared in that kind of amazing motel we stayed at.
Right by Clearwater Beach.
Clearwater Beach. That was amazing. Like we were drinking. I don't even remember what it was. Was it High Life? Did we have some High Life? We definitely had some.
I think we picked up some beers from. What's the local brewery?
Three Sisters we had.
Three Daughters.
Three Daughters, yeah. We had some of that, I remember. But I thought we had some...
which was pretty average beer.
It was.
Oh, we probably did. We probably did drink plenty of High Life, given that it's in Tampa. That brewery's in Tampa Bay. We must have done.
Yeah, those were some great pool beers. So I'm all up for some more pool beers in our lives, Johnny.
Well, maybe I'll dig out the photos that we took of that and I'll stick it on our Instagram and promote the podcast that way. And obviously, I'll put the video of us at Kauskanasumave into the show notes.
Nice.
Because it's not a great video. Like, we didn't really know what to expect, so we weren't planning to really film. But as soon as we arrived, we were like, holy shit, we have to film everything. So it's a bit of a rushed video, but I'll put that in the show notes. I'm going to watch it again, actually. I haven't watched it in years.
Am I right in thinking that it's gone now, Cal? In all meaningful forms.
It closed down at the start, towards the beginning of this year. I can't remember whether it was COVID related or not, but it's always struggled, and their quality has gone up and down apparently. But I think there are moves to try and bring it back again. You know, it's one of those places, and indeed one of those recipes. Like, in fact, all of the recipes, the 10, the 12, the 16, and the 18, are just stunning beers, so hopefully somebody will bring it back. Maybe we should do a crowdfunder and save Kauskanasumave.
I like it.
Cool, that's all we've got time for this week. The final thing to say is that tomorrow is Untapped's virtual beer festival, which, European edition, because it's happened in the States already, and we have given them a video all about how beer is made and how to taste it like a beer judge. So if you are taking part tomorrow, watch out for us. If you're not taking part, it should be good fun anyway. They'll be interviewing some great brewers and stuff, so just grab whatever beers and tune into that. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well, and you'll get a cameo from me at some point near the start, I think, but I don't know for sure. Cool, that's everything. So we'll see you on Wednesday for our next homebrew adventure, and then next week for another podcast as our Christmas content starts to ramp up. The Bubble Podcast is brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's Craft Beer channel. Head to youtube.com/the Craft Beer channel to watch this week's video and over 400 more exciting episodes. If you love what we do, please do subscribe and even join our Patreon at patreon.com/craftbeer channel. Love and beer.